Salute to Knicks Nation. We came in tonight looking for the New York Knicks to exercise some demons against the Memphis Grizzlies. They play tonight at MSG. Knicks would come out in the first quarter, giving them a good battle. They'd even end the quarter, with a 1 point lead. We got to see RJ Barrett starting to come back around after having a miserable game earlier this week, or I should say, earlier this week against the Portland Trail Blazers. You even have Julius Randle giving you some buckets. You had a lot of the guys contributing, cutting off ball. We started to see some good ball movement in the first half. That would even translate into the second quarter. We'd see the Knicks continue to play some good defense, solid defense, still get that off-ball cutting. We saw Quentin Grimes get in there starting to cut. We saw Cam Reddish starting to cut as well. All these guys, Emmanuel quickly would give us a little spark off the bench. The second quarter was a good, tight battle, but the Knicks would be down by 2. Then the third quarter would come around. The New York Knicks looked like they were lifeless for a little bit, even though they were trying to find a way. Their three-point shots weren't falling, but the Grizzlies were able to get to the line and still knock down their shots. The third quarter would end with the Grizzlies having a 10-point lead, but the Knicks were not done. The Knicks were not done at all. They said, you know what, we're going to come back in the fourth quarter and start battling. We see that second unit come in. No Emmanuel quickly because he injured his knee. But still, these guys would start getting their three-point shot to fall. Start off with Obi Toppin, and then getting some RJ Barrett threes as well. These guys would work their way back up to get it down to 4 points. And then they would still have to fight their way on the backs of Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson being clutch in this matchup, Jeff. He would just get 17 points in the fourth quarter, carrying this Knicks team to get 1 point leads. But before that, we even had Cam Reddish giving a splash from 3, just as a reminiscent shot that we saw when they first played against each other in the season opener. Unfortunately, this game would come down to the wire when you thought Brunson was going to get the free throws to really give us that win and seal it. John Morant would just drive in the fourth quarter and get into the paint. Knicks didn't foul him. They were afraid to foul because they kept sending them to the line. Ja would get that layup. Knicks would come back down and have two good-looking shots, man. Jalen Brunson just couldn't hit the floaters, man. He couldn't hit the mid-range to start off, nor the floater. Ultimately, the Memphis Grizzlies would seal this game, and the Knicks would fall 123 to 127. Knicks lose in a tight one, man. It was a good game. Don't feel too terrible about it, but no moral victories. We got some good stuff to walk away from just because everybody came back healthy. But hey, thank you, Knicks Nation, for tuning in for KnicksFanTV Post-Game Live. I am your host, Alex Gutierrez, a.k.a. the Stratocaster, and with me on the other side is Jeff Campbell, KnicksFanTV writer and our draft expert for the website as well. Tonight, if you're planning to call in and give us your takes, we are only taking Discord calls, so make sure to download the Discord, hop into the Discord. You should already have it by now, all right? We get clean, crispy calls. Make sure to hop in, get your takes off. And this show, as always, is presented by Manscaped. Make sure to use that promo code KFTV to get 20% off and free shipping and handling. So let's get into this conversation. Jeff, man, how you doing, bro? How you feeling today?
Man, cardiac Knicks. They've been doing it to us all season. Like you said, kind of at the end of that opening, I'm not too let down by this loss. The first thing that comes to mind is just like a developing middle of the table team that's maybe getting their first playoff shot. You can't skip steps, right? So a team that makes it into the playoffs that hasn't been there, they usually take their lumps in the first round, they lose. That's kind of what I thought Jalen Brunson has been like for these past couple of games. And I mean that with his fourth quarter execution. He's the guy on this team, and they give him the ball in the fourth quarter. So he's kind of going through a little bit of heartbreak. He said at the end of the game the other night, I missed that last shot. My teammates put a lot of trust in me. It happened again tonight. There's 2 floaters, one just kind of a mid-range that there's a really good contest from Brandon Clark on. I'm not mad about it. The offense was clearly in the fourth quarter. Give the ball to Jalen Brunson and see what he decides to do, whether it's to play make for somebody else or to take the shot. We could talk about that a little bit later, but based on the way our team is constructed, based on the way things have been going, that seems to be the best option that he has. And honestly, prior to us getting into a point where we had a chance to win, Jalen Brunson did everything, like you said, to put us on his back and put us in a position to be there. and he's got to be one of the best fourth quarter scorers in the NBA. I haven't looked at those stats, but he's got to be up there. So overall, listen, of course, I'm disappointed we fall to 9-11, but there's a lot of positives that I think we could talk about. I'm sure we'll get to more on this post game tonight.
For sure. But let's start off with Jalen Brunson since you brought him up, man, because 17 points in the fourth quarter, ended the game with 30 points, 9 assists, 5 rebounds, went to the free throw line, hit 11 of his 12 shots, went 3 for 5 from 3-point. This guy, man, we had everyone complaining like overpay, family tie connections, all this stuff from the offseason. We didn't even want this guy. Part of the fan base didn't even want this guy, but he's been the most consistent guy that we've had on this team. Scoring, passing, efficiency. He's by far the most efficient player. He's by far the best player that we have, and there's a reason why you talked about why it's on him in the fourth quarter and why we've gone to him so many times. He's legit the closer for this team. There's no better guy that we got that can create a shot consistently, create separation, and has the good footwork to finish in the paint. Unfortunately, putting up 17 points in the fourth quarter, sure, his legs were a little tired. I mean, he was even questionable coming into this game. But everything you asked about for Jalen Brunson, man, he has been one of the best signings in a long time. He's playing a position that we need, that we've been asking for such a long time, for the past 20 years. Yeah, we had Raymond Felton and Jason Kidd. That was a nice flash in the pan. But truly, Jalen Brunson is that point guard. He has been delivering on a consistent basis. Sure, he had some games where it's like, where is he at, especially playmaking-wise? But tonight, I mean, he tried to do everything possible, man. He legitimately did. And I honestly don't even know where this Knicks team would be without him. Honestly, I think our record would be a little bit worse without him, because we had games against Charlotte where he's closing. You had games even recently where he's closing, even against OKC, right? He's the guy that you want to get to the free throw line. And the thing that I love that he gets to do, man, most of the time he does it so well, is his ability not only to use his footwork to get into the paint, but when he's going downhill with a full head of steam, he just knows how to cross over and draw the foul to get defenders to like reach in for the ball. And then he just crosses over and gets to the foul line so many times, man. You see Dylan Brooks is having a hard time even trying to defend that tonight. And that's why he's able to get to the line so many times as he does. And that is part of clutch basketball, man. You know, we would complain it. Sure, off topic, like I would complain about James Harden, how he gets to the free throw line numerous times a game. But when you have a guy that can finally do it and gets the calls and respected for it, it's totally a game changer. But what are your thoughts about Brunson tonight, man, overall? I know you touched on it, but what are your overall thoughts?
No, I love this game. I think the only question now is, who do we put around him, or who do we finish the game with in terms of, being able to either give him better options. Like there was a play, and I think it might have been that mid-range jumper where he just shot it a little too strong off the back iron, comes off. So I think Mitch was actually out for that, and they had, I want to say, Julius, Grimes, Cam, Brunson, and I forget who else was in there. But Cam and Grimes went to the corner and kind of like those corner three spots. So if the defense is kind of collapsing on him too much, they have some options there. But you get the feeling, and I know we'll probably talk about Julius a little bit. I think he had 14, 10, and 9. I think he maybe only took 9 shots tonight, but we've got to figure out a way to make things easier for him. And some people are probably upset. I'm a little upset sometimes at what the Knicks' fourth quarter offense looks like, because it's just so heavily isolation driven, and it's really just give the ball to Brunson and have him figure it out. But we've got to have guys that either are better at getting themselves open, working more efficiently with him in the pick and roll. I'm always surprised at how we don't really go pick and roll with him and Julius, especially in the fourth quarter, because at least there's some, there's at least a respect of a pick and pop that you have to do there. But, listen, I love Jalen Brunson. I don't want to hear about him not being a great playmaker and not setting up his teammates. The league is at such a place where there's enough point guards and teams in the NBA that are score first, that don't really look necessarily to get their guys open, but can do it. And Jalen Brunson fits that role, whether it's like Fred VanVleet or, he's a tier below some of these elite guys like a Trae Young, a John Morant, of course. But there's no reason to be upset about him, not being Ricky Rubio, with in terms of his playmaking abilities. Jalen Brunson is a stud. You brought up the point earlier that our record would be worse without him. I think substantially worse without him. I don't think we would have, honestly, man, we would probably have at least 5 less wins, I think, without Jalen Brunson in just his offense alone. So, I'm sure we can talk about some of the negative areas and places where the Knicks need to improve, but Jalen Brunson is not one of them.
Yeah, he's definitely on the bottom of the list of what he can't do, because what he does on a night-to-night basis is important. But you brought up Julius Randle. We could talk about Randle because I thought he had, even though he didn't shoot well from 3 tonight, he still got to the line, got 5 out of 6 for his free throws, went 4 for 9 from the field. Not a lot in the paint as I would like to see from Randle tonight, but he did get you the 10 boards. He did get you 9 assists. He got you 14 points. He did other things to impact the game by being a playmaker, being a rebounder. And for Randle, as much as I could say, we can always nitpick Randle and get on like really focusing on Randle and just saying, he doesn't play defense well enough some nights, or he's not looking to play make, or he just puts his blinders on and tries to get his. But tonight, like nights like this, I would just ask him to be a little bit more aggressive in the paint, because I thought he could have done so, with these type of matchups, especially when you have Jaren Jackson Jr. I think even if you want, like even when he's out and you have Brandon Clark and Randall's in there, you should be able to utilize his strength in order to get downhill and just force those and just allow him to get his buckets, man. That's his game, is using his physicality. But tonight, I'm not really upset with Randle. I thought he did a fine job. Sure, yeah, there are plays where he was caught sleeping on defense, but I thought overall his play was pretty well off. I don't really have many complaints for him. But yeah, I think the thing for Randle, man, is like you said, getting him involved in the pick and roll, having him be an off-ball threat, because for the most part, he likes to be on ball, play in isolation, and that's usually how he gets his points. I was actually shocked when I saw him cutting, and even though it was a foul and it didn't count, Brunson found him cutting to the lane for what seemed like it was going to be a layup or a dunk earlier, or in the I think it was in the third quarter. And that stuff I think he could just do to be more involved on the offense. I mean, we can see Cam, we can see Obi, we could see Grimes, who love to cut off ball and then look for the extra pass. If Randle can do that, and it's not like we haven't seen him be able to do that, but it's just getting into a different mindset and a different way of attacking this game to be an impactful player. And I think if he can do that, that would just help him take his game to another level. And it's not like like I said, it's not like we haven't seen it before, where he can drive into the middle of the lane and kick it out. He did that 2 years ago, right? I get that everyone's like, oh, trade him, trade this. But while he's here and you're going to need him to contribute, these are just aspects of his game that I think he can improve on to just be a better player and a better like overall fit for what this team's trying to do. Because this team, outside of Brunson, like we've seen Randle go ISO, and then sometimes he can get it, but it's not as consistent as Brunson. Brunson is just on a whole other level of consistency at this point. Randle, like he can get it in spurts. I think what is it? It's like you watch players are always good, like quarterbacks in the NFL, where they're good between the 20s. They can get a lot of chunk yards, but once you get down to the red zone, it's like, sometimes he's good, sometimes he's not. That's kind of Randle sometimes on a given night. Like in the flow of the game between quarters 1 through, I'd say up until like with the 6 minutes left in the fourth quarter, that's where you get the best out of Randle for most of the game. And then once it starts getting down, it comes down to decision making. We know that's where he starts to unravel in some places. And if he can just do other things that you're asking for, right? Like you noted, pick and roll. We know the pick and pop, even though he's not really a good 3-point shooter. But stuff like that, man. Stuff like that can help this offense really move forward. Just off-ball movement and cutting. I'd like to see more of that from him.
Yeah, the one thing that killed me about Randle, so like I've seen it, I'm sure Alex, you've seen it too, Knicks Twitter, and rightfully so. Like, I'm not saying this is necessarily a bad thing, but there's been a lot of kind of highlighting some of the defensive lapses that Randall has had in games. We see a lot of videos that are cut where it's like the backdoor cut, or he's just losing his man on the offensive glass, or whatever it is, right? So I was like, you know what? Let me hone into that. Let me see what that looks like tonight. So I really tried to watch Randall on defense a lot. And honestly, I might have missed a couple of plays, but I caught at least 4 or 5 possessions where it's not just that he got beat, right? Like that's fine. But either he completely missed a box out or a closeout, to a 3-point shooter that was wide open that he definitely needed to rotate to, or he was at least the closest defender. So I actually agree with you for the most part. Offensively, I liked his game. I didn't think Randall forced a lot, and the shots will show you that, he didn't have a ton of looks tonight, and I think he made the most of what he had. And of course, he was active on the boards, and the assists show you that he was a productive player. But the thing is, it's like the devil is in the details with Julius, because these little things, these little defensive lapses in a 4-point game tonight make such a huge difference. Like, I can think of 2 off the top of my head. There's a scramble for the ball, and then Ja is out for an open 3-pointer. And like, listen, he could have made it anyway, but Julius didn't even attempt to close out. And there was a couple of rebounds here, again, where it's just like, when it goes up, you've got to look to the closest person near you, and you've got to find a body, and you've got to box out. And that's not just a Julius Randle thing. We could say that about a bunch of different NBA players. But
you say that about RJ, man. You can even say that on RJ and C too.
And we'll definitely talk about that for sure. And because I don't want to. I'm never a fan of killing Randle so much, because he's like a lot of Knicks players that we've had on this team. They're playing out of a role that they're not super familiar with, and they're probably not playing in a role that is best suited for their skill set and talent level. So they get killed when they don't, really produce well. So my thing for Julius, like, honestly, I liked his game overall tonight, but it's just some of those little, just defensive lapses, just lack of awareness, like not seeing the backdoor cut, or just not being with your man. Just those are the things that, man, honestly, if he can shore up, we have a much better chance of winning.
For sure. And I think I get those points. Like, it comes down to the detail, but that's like anything else with a lot of these players on the team. And we look at Randall because he is paid. He is one of the top 3 guys on this team, and you need your top 3 guys to not only play at that level, but to set an example, especially when you're watching other guys who are playing lesser roles on this team do that as soon as they get on the floor. Because one, they're trying, and we see that because those guys are trying to earn minutes, right? We look at Cam, Grimes, all those guys, they're all trying to earn as many minutes. So you got to hone in on the detail, especially on a Tom Thibodeau team, if you want to get extra minutes. But still, it goes back to like your point. Yeah, I hear that, but tonight, like, I feel like for the role that he was doing, yeah, there's other things that he can do for, but there's other victims, or not other victims, but there's other culprits, I should say, that could have been involved, like one
For
RJ
sure.
Barrett. But we're going to save RJ for a little bit, because I got to talk about my guy who's looked sluggish the last couple of games since he's been back, and that's one Mitchell Robinson, man. Dude had a stat line of 16 points, 7 rebounds, 5 blocks tonight. All right, went 4 for 7 from the free throw line, which that is just shocking to me. They went 4 for 7, and then went for 6 for 7 from the field. I think Mitch had a really strong defensive presence tonight, man. You just see what this team lacks when we don't have our top rim protector there, and he forced everybody. Didn't even matter who, John Morant, anybody that came into the paint, tried to attack around the rim, he would alter shots. Yeah, John Morant's a different beast. There's a reason why he's an all-star. He's usually he will make most of his shots going into the paint. That's just what he does. But I thought Mitch had a solid defensive presence tonight overall. He helped us stay into this. He's helped us stay in this game, and it's nice to see that he's starting to work his way back from one conditioning, the knee injury, because we're going to need him for most of these games, man. Where you just saw, like, when you have Hartenstein in there, it's different. Like, we don't have rim protection, and Interesting we didn't have Jericho Sims tonight, considering you're playing John Moran, a guy who likes to attack the paint, and the Grizzlies are just good at attacking the paint too in general as a team. And I'm shocked that we didn't have Jericho Sims get some minutes. I know Tibbs is trying to shorten this rotation and went back to 10, which is another thing to note. But I really like how Mitchell Robinson can really impact this team as a defensive anchor. And tonight, even though it was a loss, it was close. It just shows the type of how this team changes defensively when he's there, man. Because he covers a lot, man. He covers up for a lot. Like Randall, like when he's missing, Mitch is a safety valve. He can go there and just swat anything away. Just send back, return to sender. Same thing for RJ. When someone's going past RJ or missing an assignment, you have Mitch right there, just being able to stand right there and defend the rim. But Mitch, man, overall, this is why the Knicks extended him. This is why you can see Tibbs wanted him, and it's because of his defensive presence.
Yeah, listen, I loved what Mitch brought us tonight. For me, the indicator of whether we get really productive Mitch or like kind of mediocre Mitch is if he's staying on the floor and not biting on head fakes. If he stands his ground and he doesn't go for the John Moran head fakes, the Dylan Brook head fakes, where you get him in the air and then it's an easy foul and you get to the line, we have a very different Mitchell Robinson. Number one, he can stay on the court longer because he's not getting into early foul trouble. But you saw, he was a really strong deterrent for the Memphis Grizzlies offense. I saw numerous possessions where it didn't matter that they necessarily didn't make the shot or whatever, but he just stopped a drive, or he really altered the trajectory of a ball when guys tried to get the floaters off, whatever it was. So I thought he had a really strong game. Honestly, him, Brunson, and Cam were probably my three guys that I really thought had a strong showing tonight. But Mitch, man, I love him. I think he's such a big part of what we do. I see a lot of talk online that sometimes people feel that Jericho Sims' recent good play makes Mitch expendable, and I'm just, I love Jericho Sims. That's another great feather in the player development hat of Tom Thibodeau. But I don't think that I don't know that Jericho is really reading the game like Mitch yet. I'm sure he could. I'm sure he could get to that point, but I see Mitch doing a lot of stuff, and especially those offensive rebounds. Alex, think of how many possessions he kept open for us tonight. Just getting the ball and spraying it out, or trying to go up himself. Like you said, the free throws were really positive, 4 for 7 from the line. If he just stays healthy, he stays out of foul trouble, he's really productive for us.
And I thought tonight against Steve Adams, who gave him a lot of problems in the opener, I thought he did a pretty good job tonight, man, just bouncing back. Steven Adams is no easy matchup for any center.
He's so difficult. He's
he's a difficult guy. I mean, look, Steven Adams had 7 offensive rebounds tonight. He's probably a better rebounder just because of like his tenure in the league, just what he does. Like I think as an overall center, you're like Steven Adams is better than Mitchell Robinson, right? Just much more well-rounded of what he can do. But the fact that Mitch, I think tonight I think he was very poised tonight as a defender. Like from what we've seen overall, like yeah, he got 4 fouls. Some of these fouls, man, I'm just like, it could go both ways. And usually the Knicks are not on the opposite end when we're going there. Yeah, Brunson gets his, but there's some of them where I'm like, come on now, you're calling this for Ja. Where is it on our end as well? Or anybody else for that matter. But I think for Mitch, man, this is probably one of the most poised defensive games against one of the better centers in the league that he has to face. Yeah, I mean he hasn't faced Joel Embiid yet because Joel was out that time. But outside of Giannis, that's just difficult for. I think Giannis is just difficult for anyone to cover. But for Steven Adams, a traditional center, I thought he did a pretty solid job tonight. Not too upset with his performance.
And the other thing that killed me tonight, man, and I'm not going to complain about this too much because at the end of the day, like, listen, we lost the game. Like, the better team won. I see that. But the favorable whistle that John Morant gets is just so insane. Like, there could be a wet spot on the floor. This dude slips, and it's like whistle, two to the line, and like no one's around him. It's just like it can be disheartening because there was two fouls that were called on Mitch. One that we did challenge, we got overturned, but there was another
Yep.
one that I was just kind of like, God, man, like John Moran is so good that he actually doesn't need that. He doesn't need the refs to give him easy calls like that. But listen, he's a superstar, and he's gonna get that. That's fine, but just a little frustrating kind of like wrinkle in the game where you're just sitting there at home and you're just screaming at the TV like, how is that possible?
Yeah, man. I mean, look, think about the foul with RJ and Steven Adams where they called that on RJ. I was like,
Right,
I
the
don't
loose
even like
ball foul. Yeah,
they're both pulling at each other's jerseys. What are
right.
we even making that call for? And this is just the questionable stuff I say, man. Like the Knicks sometimes just don't get those type of calls on a regular basis, depending on who the opponent is. But when we're playing top end teams like that, definitely not. And it's frustrating. And so when I look at Mitch getting 4 personal fouls, I'm like, even Brunson, I'm like, I get it. I get what the league. I get the league, but still, there's some of these where it's just like I thought for overall tonight defensively. That's why go back to Mitch and say, solid effort is what is. At least he didn't foul out. That's something that he's really worked on. That is what I'm probably most proud of because we know
There,
how bad that was, especially as a rookie.
there was
But
another one
hey,
that killed me, Alex. I don't know if you saw it, but someone just clipped it where Ja. I think it was before he got the miss, then the rebound, then the layup. He commits such a blatant offensive foul. I think he pushed Cam out of the way or Grant. Like I'm
yes,
like, dude, come on. But yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not gonna harp on that too much. I know who's our next guy that we're discussing.
we're talking about RJ Barrett, man, who from a statistical standpoint, bounced back tonight, especially on the offensive side. Went 9 for 18 from the field, 2 for 6 from three. Hit both of his free throws. Got you 7 rebounds, 4 assists, 22 points. Thought tonight RJ was pretty well composed considering for what he's seen other nights and how he started the season. Which I'm over the slow starts, man, for RJ. But tonight, these are the type of stat lines we need to see from him on a consistent basis because once again, paid. He's looked at as one of the top 3 guys. He has to be doing something consistent like this, or even what Randall did tonight, right? Like even what Randall did, where it's like, okay, you're not going to have that type of offensive production because the game is not calling for you to do that. Fine, get me the 9 assists, get me the rebounds, still have some efficient shooting, and that's the type of game we need to have from RJ. But I thought he bounced back very well after having a clunker of a game against the Portland Trailblazers. I thought overall he was pretty well composed. He had some big drives in the fourth quarter. He had 2 big threes in the fourth quarter as well to help this team stay in it as throughout this game. I like what I saw from RJ Barrett tonight, man. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, this is what I want to say about RJ. I do like you said, there's a bounce back there, so there's a level of mental toughness that I can really appreciate from him. And I've always felt in everything we've heard and it's been reported, he's no stranger to work, right? So these are great things for a young player, but it's something that we talked about a little bit offline. I don't need RJ Barrett to shoot 6 threes a game anymore. I really don't. I love all of the work he did with Drew Hanlon. Drew Hanlon is a very famous skills instructor. I'm sure they did a ton of great work over the summer. It's just that, and we talked about it. Fred Katz for The Athletic wrote a really great article about RJ last season, post All-Star break, and he basically said RJ is tired of trying to be a player that he's not. He's going to go to the hole. He's going to try and be a more efficient um, finisher at the rim and improve his free throw shooting. For RJ Barrett, if you just improve those 2 areas, finishing at the rim, free throw shooting, he would be a much more efficient player. And I think it would be better for our offense as well. I can give maybe 3 or 4 threes a game, but I'm tired of seeing RJ hoist up 6 plus a night, and I just don't see him becoming a really good 3-point shooter, and that's not a bad thing if he can get better in some of those other areas. At this point in year 4, I want him to be a little bit more self-evaluative I want him to really look at himself and see, what type of player am I? What do I do well? What am I not doing well? Instead of maybe trying to chase um, a Jason Tatum like skill set that maybe is not going to ever be there. So, but to your point, Alex, honestly, I appreciated the bounce back. RJ's been getting a lot of criticism lately, and rightly so. You know, he's no kid anymore. I know he's 22, so yeah, he is a kid, but he got paid. He's a number 3 pick in the draft. He deserves criticism for some of his tunnel vision because that's exactly what it's been. The decision when he get this decision making when he gets into the paint has been really poor, really poor. And tonight I was happy that it didn't seem like he was leaving as many guys open on the perimeter when he went in to kind of get his little flip shot or his floater or whatever it was. And when he did drive to the hoop, there was at least an open lane there or a path that seemed reasonable instead of driving into 3 defenders. But going forward, I just want RJ to be. I really just want him to focus on finishing at the rim and free throw shooting. Listen, if they leave you open at the 3-point line, whatever. You know, like I'm sorry, but it's just taking 6 of those a game. I just don't see it as a reasonable path towards him becoming the best version of himself.
Yeah, man. And I think the one thing you harped on is definitely the blinders when it comes on to attacking the lane and not looking for guys on the perimeter and passing it out to. That was something that while he was in college, he still had that issue as well, but he was known as a slasher, a guy that can get to the rim and was able to find his perimeter shooters. Now at Duke, he didn't have a lot of perimeter shooters. That team didn't have any good didn't have much good 3-point shooters, I should say, especially in that starting lineup with him, Cam, and Zion. But that is definitely something he needs to work on, is his ability to find open 3-point shooters or just find someone in the paint. Like we see Grimes do it all the time, man. Grimes just cuts off ball. You see him maneuvering without the ball in his hand. He's just cutting into the lane. He'll get the pass like we saw from Jalen Brunson. And then even when he sees a defender in his face, he's able to dump it off to, I think it was, he found Mitchell Robinson first and then did it again and found Hartenstein, even though that one didn't count. These are just simple things RJ can do, and it's just the next level of high IQ play. This is something that only from, like we talked about for Randall, this is the same thing for RJ. Both of those guys need to be better than stop worrying about getting theirs. Just because you're considered one of the top 3 players, you have to know how to play within your envelope, right? You need to know what your game is all about. And if you're not that efficient isolation scorer, if you struggle in some areas of your game, you got to start looking for your teammates who can help you, especially open up the game, right? When Grimes does that, it makes the game easier for him because you don't know what he's going to do next. When he's cutting down the lane, it's like, is he going to go for the layup? Is he going to find somebody? And then as a defense, you're like, now we got to figure out how to adjust and prepare for this because we have no idea what the next pass or what the next play will be. And and it causes the entire defense just to shift and think at a different level, and it puts them on their heels. That's stuff that we just need to see from this team overall. But I think this is a time to reset and start taking some calls. Daniel, let's reset the entire thing. Salute to Knicks Nation. Thank you for tuning in for KFTV Post Game Live. I'm your host, Alex Gutierrez, aka the Stratocaster, and with me on the other side is Jeffrey Campbell, writer for KFTV, our draft expert as well. But before we get to the lines, before we get to the Discord, make sure to call in on the Discord tonight, all right? That is the big thing. If you got Discord, you know how to get to it, download it, go to the server, call in tonight. Let's hear some of your thoughts. We got a super chat tonight from Afrik NY, $5 super chat. Thank you for the contribution. Thoughts on the last play, y'all? I say go for walk-off 3. The wife said take the 2 for the tie. I told her we would lose in overtime. Thoughts on that? I think this team is not a good 3-point shooting team. They struggled in the first half. They were not hitting the threes at all. I think they hit 1 for 2 and they were like 1 or 2 for like 10 or 12 to begin the game, something along those lines. I would not go for the 3 just because the Knicks are last in 3-point shooting percentage behind the arc. And I don't think that's a winning play. For this team, they're so much better working in the paint, and especially with Jalen Brunson, who's able to get into the paint. Working to the strength of this team is Let's drive. Let's see if we can create something. I think that's a default, the fallback option to go for three if someone was open on the perimeter after Brunson makes a move. But I'm not doing that for this team. This team's not good at shooting threes at all. It's no, no. I just can't do it. Like maybe if they were hot tonight, I would go for it. But tonight was just not one of those nights. What's your thought, Jeff?
We can't go off script, man. Honestly, like what we do well in the fourth quarter is we give Jalen Brunson the ball, and I know it sounds crazy, but this is what we do. This is Tom Thibodeau's fourth quarter offense, and I've always been a Tibbs defender, but I've been very puzzled as to why it looks like it does in the fourth quarter. But that is what we do, and when it's worked, it's worked, and I just Jalen Brunson can't really shoot threes that well, or at least thus far in 20 games, he hasn't shown us that he can in a Knicks uniform. So what we're hoping for is for him to drive the lane, get fouled, or finish at the rim, or turn around and hit a fadeaway mid-range jumper. That's the fourth quarter offense in crunch time right now. And so, Alex, I agree with you. Like, of course, I would love to get a nice open three for Cam or Quentin Grimes or something like that. Like, off, some misdirection, multiple brush screens, like whatever it is. Like, that would be beautiful. But, like, we don't do that. And so, as of right now, the way things are going, we kind of have to stick with that formula until we start seeing that the guys that are on the floor late in games can do different.
For sure, man. And we got another super chat from Chuck D. Shout out to the OG. Everyone throw a hashtag PE in the chat. Chuck D says, small yet big enough issues. Jenkins Grizz seems smarter and hustled harder. There is a 48-win team in here, but also RJ and Grimes got to give us what Burks gave us. Man. Where's CP? Where's
Uh-oh.
CP? Where is CP right now to hear the Burks love? You know what's funny? I actually I'm not CP would love it if he was here right now. We actually need another isolation score.
Yeah.
Like that's the one thing Burks gave us last year was another ISO score in crunch time. But yeah, man, that's tough. And to Chuck D's point, it's right. I mean, the Grizzlies play such a smart, well-rounded game. Like, yeah, every team has their mistakes. I've been doing a lot of these game of the week previews, getting to talk to a lot of other content creators, beat writers, or so forth who cover respective teams, and you hear, man, that each team has their own issues when it comes down to play calling, lineup issues. Like I was just talking to Tori for Portland, talked about Chauncey Billups. When it comes to rotations and lineup choosing, you hear like you got the Warriors trying to figure out how to manage their youth. You have what was it? Who were the other ones that we did? I mean, there's so many that we discussed that what could the team do better? We had Philadelphia. We had Philadelphia. We talked about Doc Rivers, man, doing the same thing and being stubborn to play young guys, rotations, some stubbornness when it comes to like what are you going to do when it comes to play calling. This is nothing new for this is nothing new for any team, but what hurts is what Chuck D said is that it comes down to playing smarter, man. And this team just needs to play smarter. The IQ on this team is really where it comes down to, and just doing the tiny little things, which is cutting off ball, just being, whether it's cutting off ball, staying in front of your man, knowing where your defender is, playing defense on a string. That's all communication, man. I wonder, what is the communication on defense? Who is that player that's taking the lead to being an effective communicator on defense? Because you watch the Celtics, it's Marcus Smart. You watch the Golden State Warriors, it's Draymond Green. They usually have somebody quarterbacking the defense. Sometimes that's your center as well. Who's doing that for the Knicks? Because that's something I would like to know. Maybe that's something that needs to help, that needs to improve in order for this team's defense to take another step up.
Yeah, I think ideally it's Mitch. I know that they've worked on his communication over the years and him being a little bit more of a vocal leader. But you're right, man. I think, the point is well taken that the Grizzlies are a team. You look at their core, their nucleus. They've invested in Ja, Brandon Clark, I know they brought Steven Adams over, I think, from a trade. Okay, Brooks. They have some nice role players. And we didn't even talk about him. He's been injured. I forget whether he's out for the whole year or how long he's out for. But remember Zaire Williams? He played like I don't know, 10 or whatever games it was at Stanford, and was like a pretty decently high draft pick and played really good minutes for them last year. Um, but they have chemistry, and that's what we don't have. I mean, the Knicks front office has invested in some of our guys, and we've had some continuity, but they're clearly still figuring out how to best kind of allocate shot distribution between Randall, Brunson, and Barrett. Um, and you know, I think there's still going to be some time to take, even though we're at the 20 game mark.
Yeah, man. And I see people saying Cam is that dude in the chat right now that can be our ISO scorer. And yeah, Cam has shown flashes and shown, shout out to Lash who's also in the chat. Hashtag in Cam we trust. I get that. I get that Cam can do that. It's coming back to, can he do it on a consistent basis? He just came back from an injury. I think he's working on establishing himself that could be that player to do it. But it takes time to earn that type of role. Like for Burks, he's a veteran in the league, right? And I think for Tibbs, he needs to see that Cam can, he would need to see that Cam could consistently score on a night to night basis and just play one good foundational basketball, like taking good open shots, being able to drive. And Cam has shown that. Cam has shown that he can do that. Like we've seen that he can make that swing pass. We see that he can continue to like move off ball. We're seeing him cut. We're seeing him do all those other little things. The more he can continuously do that to work on the little stuff and show that he can do the little stuff, then he can start getting some of those green lights and be like, all right, Cam, you go to take that step back jumper because I can trust you because you can do everything else. Fine. But until he can do all that consistently on a night to night basis and show scoring in that manner, well, I don't think he's going to get that type of role yet. Although I do agree that I think Cam can be that type of guy. I think it's just working on getting up to that type of level. I don't think he's earned that right yet to do that.
It's funny. Let me throw the Cam Hive a little bit of love here, because there's some interesting things going forward that I really want to kind of check and monitor. So I love what Cam Reddish did tonight. First off, he gets into a little brush up with Dylan Brooks, who I can't stand, first off. And you think that's maybe gonna mess with Cam a little bit. Maybe it gets in his head. Dylan Brooks clearly sees himself as a player that is gonna push buttons a little bit. But what does Cam do? The next possession, he picks the guard's pocket and gets it and drives to the other end of the court to set us up. I'm a big fan of what Cam is doing right now. The one question I have, and I would be asking Tom Thibodeau, is the reason he came off the bench tonight, is it because you're trying to slowly incorporate him back into the starting lineup? Because Cam was starting prior to getting hurt, and then, Grimes took his place. And we know that the front office, we know that the team values Grimes quite a bit, based on the trade discussions that were had over the summer with Donovan Mitchell. But my thing is this, and I'm not saying that I forget whether Tibbs has said this before, but I know other coaches have said this before. You're not going to lose your spot in the rotation. You're not going to lose your spot in the starting lineup based on injury. So I just wonder now if Cam, who played, I would have to check my notes, but I believe it's at least 23 or 26 minutes tonight. If the coaching staff feels that he's full go and healthy, I think he should probably be inserted back into that starting lineup. And that's not me hating on Grimes, who is clearly still figuring his shot out a little bit. He had some really nice open looks tonight that I'm not worried about. We should expect him to make those. But the way that Cam has improved as a defender and in terms of his shot selection, Alex, you were just talking about this team needs another isolation score. And I agree with you. Cam still needs to be consistent enough to be that guy. But I'm looking for the next game and the next game after. Is now Cam coming off the bench and Grimes is just cemented into the starting lineup or not? I don't know And I'm not trying to make a huge thing about it, but I wonder what kind of a message that sends to Cam. But I thought he played really well tonight, and I thought, honestly, in the majority of his minutes that he's been on the court this season, they've been really productive. And there's just things that he does on the court that no one else can do. The way that he
sure, absolutely,
tight spots, like there's no one else on the roster that can do certain things that Cam Reddish does. So I'm interested to see kind of how that plays out going forward.
Yeah, for sure. I see everyone saying that I'm not understanding what I'm saying. This is what I'm saying about Cam, and I agree 100%. He is the most tantalizing player on this team, most gifted. He has the highest ceiling possible on this team on an offensive standpoint. That is Cam Reddish on this team. I like what Cam has shown. He is good defensively. He can be good offensively. Has he competed on an offensive basis night to night where he's been not competed? Has he produced on an offensive basis consistently? No, that's just a fact. And should he get more touches? Yes, I agree that he should get more touches. Do I think that he could be one of our best isolation scorers? Absolutely. I think he can. What I'm saying is this: Cam Reddish, in order for him to get that role from Tom Thibodeau, not me, not for me to be like, yeah, Cam, go ahead, go do this. I would love to see it. I would love to see Cam be that guy on this team. I'd love to see Cam in the starting rotation too. Between him and Grimes, I'd like to see, like, Grimes is in there. If Cam could be the best, like, guy playing the wing and doing all that because he has something that no one else on this team has, I would love to see it. For him, once again, to be the isolation scorer on this team, to get the green light from Tom Thibodeau, is for him to be consistent every single night. That is all I'm saying. I like Cam Reddish. That is all I am saying. But let's get to the calls right now, man. And we're going to talk about that Grimes and Cam stuff in a minute. Cody, I should say. I'm not going to say the last name. Cody, we're going to bring you in, so make sure to unmute your mic. And let's hear some of your takes. Cody, how are you doing today? What's going on? Cody going once. Cody going twice. You there?
Come on, Cody.
All right, we're going to put Cody back into the lounge. Doesn't seem like Cody's ready to... Oh, wait. Never mind. Bring Cody right back. Cody now just unmuted his mic. Hold on 1 second, Cody. Cody, what's going on, man? Let's hear what you got to say. How you doing?
Hey, what's up? Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you. What's going on, man?
All right. Shout out KnicksFanTV. Shout out Alex. Shout out Geoff. I'm with my baby right now. I know it's got to be rapid fire. RJ was better tonight. No Michael Doliak vibes. Everything all cool. But at the same time, I can't even lie to you, man. I'm really disappointed with the 3-point shooting and the defense, man. Like 4 years in the league, RJ need to be better at defense, man. I don't know. Before I leave rapid fire, shout out Manscaped. I average 0 turnovers, and that's all because of Manscaped. That means I take care of my balls. And I don't know, holla at you, man. Yeah, man. Let's do this. Knicks. Shout out Chuck D too. Bye.
All right. Thank you, Cody, for calling in. And yeah, man, that the 3-point shooting is definitely something that needs to turn around. We need more 3-point shootings on this team. Maybe we can have one Cam Reddish take more shots if we find him, Maybe. Just maybe. But let's get into this conversation, man. Let's get into this conversation about Grimes, Cam. You talk about Cam coming back and trying to work his way back in. Maybe he getting back into the rotation. It makes sense. Talking about a guy who has a wingspan to guard multiple positions. You need some good defenders out there. Also, there's also a good case for Grimes. Grimes is still a good defender, especially at the 2. He's more of a prototypical shooting guard than he is like a wing that what Cam can do and how many positions Cam can defend. But the things that, I think what Tibbs likes about Grimes that we've seen Cam do this from time to time is relentlessly cut to the basket, like relentless. He looks for guys who can get those the dump off passes into the paint. He's a prototypical 3-and-D type player. I think you can make the same argument for Cam that he can do those same things. But I think since Grimes has been here, that was a Tom Thibodeau guy, especially going. I think he was talked about as Tom Thibodeau. I think Tom Thibodeau mentioned that was like one of his players next to like McBride that he liked coming in from was a 2021 draft. I see him getting the preference overall. But what do you think, man? Because having both of them, and we saw both of them out on the court for a little bit of time together, especially in the third quarter and towards the end of the game. Yeah, Cam and Grimes out there. That's awesome. I'd like to see that rotation many more times because I think you get some of your best defenders out there to guard the perimeter and in isolation. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so they both have to play. Like there's no question that they both have to be in the rotation. I think there's only one way. So they both got over 20 minutes tonight. Part of the reason for that is because Emmanuel quickly hurt his knee and he didn't play in I think the whole second half or maybe even part of the second. But IQ had 9 minutes tonight. So we know that if IQ gets his normal amount of minutes per game, that's going to cut into somebody's minutes, whether it's Cam's or IQ's. I think there's really only one way that we can pave a path for Cam and Grimes to get close to 20 minutes a night each. And honestly, and this pains me to say, I love this player. I have respect so much for what he's done for his career, but I'm looking at the 11 minutes that Derrick Rose played tonight. I know he scored 6 points, but when we realistically look at this team and we realistically look at the future, and I know Derrick Rose, this is not about him not being able to get to the bucket. Derrick Rose will be 50 years old. He could still break your ankles at some point. I'm sure when he retires, he'll probably be able to still take some of the guys that are in the league off the dribble. But for what he does right now and doesn't do, because remember last season, before he got hurt, Rose was a really prolific three-point shooter. And that was the big difference when he was playing really well with us. Yes, he gets to the cup at will, but he was hitting his threes. So in the 11 minutes that we're giving him or whatever we're giving him per game from the season, those minutes can easily go to IQ, Cam, Quentin, and we've got to find a way for Rose to either be traded to another team, or I don't know if Tom Thibodeau is ready to make him situational. The issue with that is he's such a well-respected player. I don't know that you can do that to a Derrick Rose. You know, you could do that to maybe a Kemba who it really looked like was on the last legs, and he's not in the NBA now, so that's clear. But the front office has to figure out what to do with that because there's not enough minutes to go around, and Cam Reddish, Derrick Rose can't get in the way of Quentin Grimes and Cam Reddish getting minutes because we know IQ's firmly in that rotation, and I don't want him traded. I know that we've heard a lot about that recently, and maybe his camp is pushing for more minutes, whatever. But Emmanuel quickly needs to be on this team, and I think those other two guys that we mentioned need to be getting a ton of time as well. You know, we can't play everybody.
Yeah, and so let me ask you. So you think Derrick Rose should be traded? Which I hear that. So who would be running the point? You're having Emmanuel quickly run the point, being the first guard off the bench.
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm having him run the point, and honestly, you know, fans have been clamoring for him to get more minutes. And, you know, there's been a lot of times, whether it's in the fourth, I would say the fourth quarter specifically. Remember, I think me and you might have even talked about this. Obi and IQ actually last season got most of their points in the fourth quarter. Emmanuel quickly, even when he's going through his shooting slumps, is a plus defender. I don't know how he's done it. He's got a great wingspan, but his frame is not great. But he's become a really good point of attack defender, and he does things that make an impact on a nightly basis. And honestly, there's not a minute that Rose is playing that I don't, and there's not something that he's doing that I don't think IQ can do.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing I think I worry about when it comes to IQ is that he doesn't drive as much as we need to get into the teeth of the defense, right? And when you are, especially when you have Tom Thibodeau as your head coach, you know, I'd like to see IQ I think it's fine if you have him between him and Grimes, if you have probably both of them off the bench. If you do eliminate Derrick Rose, I would then probably say put Quentin Grimes on the bench, probably, and have him as the other playmaker because we see the playmaking that he can do
True.
with the starting unit. Even though it's also needed, like you need that type of playmaking, additional playmaking in the starting unit, considering that Randall and RJ are inconsistent when it comes to that aspects of their game. But if you're going to do that, I would say you have to put Grimes and IQ together because you have to get enough playmaking and somebody who's going to relentlessly attack and drive. And Grimes does that, And I think playing in summer league and having that point guard experience, because that was discussed where you played point guard back in high school and going and just growing up. I think that aspect of his game does help, especially playing shooting guard and playing for this type of team and just giving another dimension. But you definitely would need to do that. And that's kind of why I'm hesitant to trade Derrick Rose, because you still need somebody who can do that. And as much as I get that we have to move into, a youth movement and have and see what all these guys can do, I still think there is a need for having veteran leadership and still having somebody who can just knows the game, who could be a mentor. Once you get rid of Derrick Rose, I mean, I think Evan Fournier is going to be gone off this team, whether it's before the trade deadline or at the end of the season. I think he's going to be gone. Who else do you rely on to have that type of veteran mentorship? And we see that throughout the NBA. We saw it with Vince Carter. We see it with who is it? With Haslam on the Miami Heat. We see it with a lot of players that you need somebody who's done it long enough and can kind of be that a coach that's on the bench and that can relate to the players, right? And that's just kind of where I'm hesitant, one, to do that for that aspect, but also on the play style, I think we still need that, because if you're going to have Tom Thibodeau as his coach, you're going to need somebody who can do that. And we see quickly just go east and west and not really north and south. Now tonight he did some of that. Tonight he did get into the teeth of defense. Actually, I like when he had the little hezzy and then got the I think it was like a floater or off the glass or a layup. I forget what it was exactly, but that when he can do that, then yeah. And it's not like we haven't seen him do it before, but he just has to be in that mindset. And for IQ, we've discussed it on the show many times. He goes back and forth between being this guy who can either be passive or he could be aggressive, and he kind of needs to know what type of role he's going to be playing every single night. And I think he hasn't figured out that balance to be that type of guard to say I know when to be aggressive and play make. It kind of feels like he shuts one side of the brain off when it comes to doing that. I would like to see that a little bit more. Maybe he needs more playing time to do that and to really figure it out. And we did see that towards the end of last season, but I don't know why he's going back to do it. So there's a case to have both of them. There's a case for having both Derrick Rose or moving that direction to see if Quickly can do it on a consistent basis. I totally hear that, but you're gonna need to do something, especially if you want Cam in the starting rotation. If you're gonna move from Derrick Rose, that makes the most sense to me. That's what I think about it.
Yeah,
Let's get back.
Oh, my bad. No, I was just gonna say.
Go ahead. No, say your point.
I was just gonna say there's always been a Tibbs disciple on the team. And, Taj ain't here anymore. I feel like you need someone who's like an intermediary, to your point, in terms of the veteran leadership between the players and Tibbs. And, of course, Derrick Rose has known him for so long. So I definitely see the sense in the leadership and being able to drive the ball for sure.
For sure. And we got it. Before we get to the lines, we got a super chat. We got Cool Vids, man. Tibbs is the problem. No offensive creativity. Kept giving the ball to Brunson, hoping he made something happen. Tibbs did the same with Randall last 2 years. Front office has to force Tibbs to be more creative or else. Same deal in Chicago. What do you think about that?
I mean, I don't know, man. So yes, I think surface level, that is correct. I think you can absolutely criticize Tibbs, and you should, in terms of his fourth quarter play calling, or lack thereof, but I would be interested if we were looking at, let's say, like the Dallas Mavericks or something like that. Maybe, whatever team has a player that's efficient in isolation, and you watch what they do. Now, Jalen Brunson is no Luka Doncic, and neither is Julius Randle, but I do think, let's say save for like 5 or 6 teams in the league that either have well distributed talent or really forward thinking coaches that can draw up like these really creative X's and O's. This is kind of what a lot of fourth quarter execution looks like when you have guys that are heavy isolation scorers. So like, yes, I think Tibbs needs to be criticized for that, but I'm not going to kill him for it because honestly, any coach that's been here with the Knicks in the last like 10 years or so, maybe not Woody, but honestly, even Woody to an extent, what did you do? You gave the ball to Melo and he figured it out. He either playmate for himself or he got his own shot. So I'm not gonna really kill Tibbs for that, but yes, it is something that I do think we should try to improve in.
Yeah, and I think, Tibbs has never been the guy that was known for his offensive creativity, but I'd like to see a little bit more offensive creativity in general. But I also think it comes down to the players that you have, especially in the starting lineup that he's going to rely on. So I agree with your points 100%, Jeff. And let's get to the phones before we keep reading more super chats. We got Noel Bro on the line. Noel Bro, make sure to unmute your mic. Let's hear your thoughts and your takes. What's going on, man? Noel Bro does not. Okay, wait. Let me get it one more time. There we go. Noel Bro, what's going on?
Hey, can you guys hear me?
Yeah, man. What's going on?
Hey, so I'm just calling in. I got a few thoughts on these guys. I think we got to get rid of Hartenstein. I agree with what you guys said earlier. I respect Rose, but we just got to get rid of him to free up those minutes. Obviously, Fournier's not playing, but might as well ship him out, get his money off the books if we can. And I think we got to get rid of Randall too. I just don't think RJ and Randall play well together. I think the team needs to figure out what they're going to go, what kind of direction they're going to go in. And I think if they get rid of these older dudes, get some money off the books, play the kids, and we're waiting for a superstar anyway. And the whole Donovan Mitchell situation, I know that's old news, but I think if we got Mitchell, Mitchell and Julius Randle's a first round, maybe second round exit. So I don't know. I think they got to free up some of these things, take some of Tibbs' toys away. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Noel Bro, for calling in. Almost took you out of the chat, Jeff. Almost took you out of the chat. Yeah, I hear all that, and I get all the frustrations. I mean, for sure, RJ and Randall have not played well together at all. Actually, I think our guy Colin Loring tweeted out something to over at the Strickland tweet something along those lines, and let me see if I can find that tweet. But definitely need to see some more.
It was that on-off minutes tweet, right?
Yep.
Where I remember that one.
Yeah, it was the on-off minutes tweet, and he had what was it in 1,107 possessions. This is before tonight. In 1,117 possessions with Julius Randle and RJ Barrett on the floor, the New York Knicks are negative 8.7. In 245 possessions with Barrett on and Randle off, they're plus 7. In 180 possessions with Randle on and Barrett off, they're plus 6.3. And in 343 possessions with both Randle and Barrett off, they're plus 5.3. And I think, that kind of speaks to what we see on court every single night, that it's pretty difficult for them. And I mentioned it too with net ratings over the last couple of years, that we haven't really seen RJ and Randle figure out how to coexist on the same floor. It's a lot of isolation basketball where you see Randle trying to get his or RJ trying to get his, and we didn't really see Randle looking or RJ looking for Randle in, I'd say, true flows of the game, right? Sometimes it happens, but for most of the time it feels like both of them are just looking to get theirs, and not necessarily theirs as in not trying to, but I just think that's just kind of how the game is dictated, going back to how Tibbs is not really the most offensive genius that we have,
Yeah, I think listen, It's tough because the way this team has played this year, it feels like, and I'm guilty of it too. It feels like every loss or second loss, we really start questioning who we should be investing in long term. And I don't know. I actually think the caller makes a decent point in the sense that, and I know this sounds crazy because RJ Barrett is 22 years old. You just gave him $100 million, but they are going to have to make a decision. I think which one of them, and I mean Julius Randle or RJ Barrett, is going to be on the team next season and seasons past that, because it doesn't work, and I think the ceiling for these three players as currently constructed, with Brunson, RJ, and Randall kind of leading the ship, it feels very much like a first round exit. If we even get there, Alex, honestly, so yeah, I think there are some really hard questions, and you kind of have to look at the data. You also use your eye test as well. It just doesn't it doesn't feel like it flows. It does feel like, I don't think the two of them are always playing selfishly. I really don't believe that. I think RJ, even in his heart of hearts, when he's having bad games, he's pressing. He's pressing because he believes that he's one of the best players on this team. And he believes that if the Knicks have the best chance to win, he's got to be getting 20 a night. So, when he probably gets in halftime and looks at the stat sheet, and he's like, damn, I'm 2 for 7 or I'm 2 for 8 again. Well, they're going to fall eventually. That's what he said the other night, right? And on one hand, yes, that is what a hyper, amazing athlete, professional athlete should think. But I do think that the coaching staff and the front office have to look at these two in particular, Julius Randle and RJ Barrett, and you just have to honestly think to yourselves, what does our offense look like, best case scenario, with them and Brunson on the team? And I don't know that you can look at each other face to face and be like, yeah, this is going to be a really good offense and an efficient offense going forward. I was just looking before we started the game today, because this is going to be our 20th game. Offense hasn't been bad for the Knicks. They're 15th in offensive rating. They're 23rd in defensive rating. But I still think that if you didn't have one of RJ or Randall, I think there's a case to be made, and clearly you just brought it up with some of those stats, that there could be a more efficient offense there. So it's just something to think about.
I think the thing that we have to see more of is just staggering these minutes, right? And we've seen it. It's not like Tibbs hasn't done it this year, where Tibbs has staggered RJ with the second unit, or even Randall with the second unit, and giving them their opportunities to get into some sort of offensive rhythm. That is something we just need to see more of as the season progresses, and it's going to go by game, right? In some games, you're going to see it. You're going to see it more so. I really like RJ with the second unit. I think that's best for him, considering he's a guy that likes to get out transition, and with guys like Obi Toppin, Quentin Grimes if he's with that second unit, or even Cam Reddish, guys who can just maneuver in the open floor. I think that's the best to get out of RJ. But yeah, definitely, it's just interesting, man, just watching the construction of this team, because even with Brunson, yes, Brunson's the facilitator and he's getting everyone involved, but it's still, I'm looking for this. It's not the first or the second. It's usually the third, fourth, fifth pass that you're looking for on a team. How does that even work? If it's passing to Randall cuts, you find RJ open on a three. That's the second, right? Or even just continuously swinging it right back around to get to somebody who is open. Maybe it's Randall in the paint. That's the stuff that I'd like to see more of on this team, and moving forward. But let's go back to the lines, man. We got other callers. We got the Chinsta, who we got on the line with us today. The Chinsta, what's happening? Let's hear your thoughts. What's going on? What are your thoughts about this game?
I'm just kind of reflecting over the season, but so far with our young players, I've really been disappointed with RJ so far. I know he's been sick and everything, but it's year 4. We got to see some consistency. But honestly, my bright spot has been Cam Reddish. what do you guys think about him? Because I think he could be a pretty high level 3-and-D player and kind of that extra glue guy we need. Kind of how Grimes operates. I think a lineup of Brunson, Grimes, Cam Reddish, Julius Randle or Obi, preferably Obi, and then one of our centers. I think that's a good spaced offense, and we could really see Jalen Brunson shine.
Yeah, the Chinsa, thanks for calling in. Really appreciate it. With regards to Cam Reddish, I mean, I was asking to see what he could offer this offseason. There was questions coming into the beginning of this season because, he injured himself against the Clippers last year. Didn't know what he would be able to offer, but I think he's been, as the Chinsa said, a pleasant surprise, and he truly has been, man, because once again, like we touched on earlier, he just does things on the court that nobody else can do. And once he gets into, I felt when he gets into a true, consistent offensive rhythm, and I feel like that's going to happen soon for him. I really feel like that's coming around the corner for him, and we just gotten back off of injury. It's I really think that this team is depending. It doesn't even matter what unit he plays with. I think he's going to be. I think he'll be definitely helpful moving forward.
Yeah, I want him to start, and again, it's no shot at Quentin Grimes. I want to see as much Cam Reddish minutes as I can so that we're in a good position to decide at the end of this season, is he a piece that we're going to have moving forward, and for me, it's all been on the defensive side of the ball. That's what I've been impressed with the most. His wingspan gives him the ability to really get deflections and to really disrupt guards that are trying to get into the paint. And I've seen him be really active and alert. And actually, and I swear I'm not trying to preach to Cam Hive tonight. That's not my role, but I actually get a little bit frustrated watching the games sometimes because they don't look for him enough.
For sure, yeah.
They really don't. Sometimes I will watch, whether it's the second unit or not, whoever is out there on the floor, there will be plenty of guys that will take, whatever ill-advised shot there is. And okay, you could say maybe Cam's got to move a little bit better. That's fine. He had a really good cut tonight. But for a guy with his skill set, and again, right now he's hitting shots efficiently. I think 3-point shooting, he's around 34-35%. But I'm just kind of surprised sometimes where it's just possession after possession, and he doesn't touch the ball, and he's sitting in the corner too much, So I there has to be more of a concerted effort. And I would expect, and I would look to Jalen Brunson for that, because I think Brunson's a smart enough guy to know that, okay, if Cam is hot, he should be getting the ball more. And if he's not, he's the type of guy that you've got to give him touches, I think, to keep him engaged on both ends. So he knows that, I've got a really talented scorer here, and I can't just have him running to the corner every time we run down the court and just sit there. So, yeah, I've been really impressed with what I've seen from him this year. I just think we need to see more, and we need to see what he can do if we give him the ball more.
Yeah, so what do you think the proper shot diet for him would be, getting 10 attempts per game? Because right now he got 24 minutes tonight. Do you think 10 attempts is somewhere right there?
What is he getting this season? If I had to guess, it's probably somewhere around 6 or 7 shots.
Let's look that up right now. How many shots does Cam Reddish get on a what is he averaging this season? Cam right now is averaging 7.4 field goal attempts per game right now.
So honestly, what you just said is exactly what I think it should be. I think he should be getting at least 10 shots a night. And I could see people being concerned as to what is the efficiency going to look like, but there's no data to suggest this year that it would be any less efficient. And honestly, man, like this has nothing to do with stats. This just has to do with, and Alex, I know you play ball. Like Cam, when he has that look in him, I just feel like this is a guy who we need to trust a little bit more because he can do some things on the court, but when he's confident and wanting to do things on the court, I think he can be special. It can also rear its ugly head too, but I think we need to see that and trust him a little bit more than just kind of, keeping him in this box. I feel very much like Cam, for as good as he's been, has been kept in a box. I know every fan listening out there right now probably feels the same way about Obi, feels the same way about IQ. And I love those guys, but Cam brings something that they don't. And I think you have to recognize it, that he can be a dominant wing scorer. And I'm not saying that we have a star that on our hands, but you've got to do yourself within your best interest. And I think you've got to give him those 10 shots and see where you are after 5 games, see where you are after 10 games. And then now you can look back and say, you know what, that didn't work. Or maybe it is working. And then you readjust after that. But to keep Cam kind of where we're at right now, like again, I said, I'm going to be very interested to see next game if he starts or not. Because if he doesn't, I don't know, man. It doesn't feel right to me. And I know Quentin Grimes is really good. And when Quentin Grimes is at his best, he could edge out Cam a little bit, but I just think I'd right now rather see what Cam's potential looks like.
Yeah, I mean, this is the last year of his contract, right? You want to see. This is why, going back to last year, we keep saying, do a talent evaluation. See what we have on the bench. See what we have in some of these guys, so that way we know going into this past offseason who can be moved, who should be part of this roster moving forward. And I agree with all the points that you said, man. I would even, the thing that it just comes down to, are we going to get that type of offensive creativity? No. Like that's the thing. Like, are we going to get that offensive creativity? And this is where I continuously ask for, you got to peel back this roster to see what we have, man. Because if we don't know who we have in Cam, Obi, quickly, like hearing those type of trade discussions, it's like you want to expedite this rebuild when you could potentially have something even better on the bench that could be here for even longer. That's the way I look at it, man. And they traded for Cam. They traded a first-round pick. Yeah, it was heavily protected, but you traded for him because, one, you want to get off of Kevin Knox's contract because you weren't going to re-sign him. So if you have this guy on the team, you at least should give him a good amount of shots to see what he can do. And he's no Kevin Knox, man. Like, he's better than Kevin Knox. We already know that. He does things that Kevin Knox can't even do, man. And just like, we need as much offense on this team as possible.
Right.
We just do. So I agree with you 100% in what you said. Let's bring on James Harris, also on the line. So James, getting ready for your call. By the way, this is the guy that said we had to expedite. I know he changed his mind on trading and expediting the rebuild, not even the rebuild process. Just go out and get a star. James, let's hear your thoughts, man. What's going on?
Hey guys, how's it going?
Good. How are you doing today?
Good. So a couple of positive things first. It was very refreshing to see RJ have a better game, Mitch have a better game, Cam come back from injury and have a strong game, his first game back. I was very happy to see that. A couple of complaints. So first, I was very happy when IQ came in. He was having another strong game. The previous few games he was strong, but then we never saw him again. And I was wondering, like, where is IQ? He's someone that could hit that 3-point shot that we needed. We were struggling for quite a while in this game with that. And also, Hartenstein, I have a complaint about him tonight on defense. So he got he committed 2 and 1 fouls in a row. And then I think it was the next play or a couple plays after, John Morant was driving down the lane. He got into the paint, and Hartenstein's backing up, and there's no one around him. And so Ja scores the basket. And I was wondering, where is Sims? Sims clearly earned his minutes the past few games. I thought he had strong games. Why didn't we see him tonight? So I mean, those are two players I really wanted to see more of tonight. Was IQ, who only got less than 9 minutes, and Sims, who didn't play at all. I'm wondering if that could have helped. It would be great to get your thoughts.
Thanks for the call, James. Well, to knock off the easy one, IQ got hurt, got a knee injury. He didn't come back, so that explains that. And yeah, we could have definitely used his shooting. He was 2 for 3 to start the night within his 9 minutes off the bench and got you 6 points rather quickly. No pun intended. But for Sims, we touched on this earlier, Jeff. Sims' defense, rim protection is much better than Hartenstein, and I get why you want Hartenstein out there. He gives you offense. He's got a good floater. He's a good passing big. He hustles, but the last part, the hustling only takes you so far because his defense, he's not a true rim protector like Sims or Mitch. And for Tibbs, I know I never thought I would see a 3 center rotation. I feel like that's too many minutes just to split between all of them, and no one can really get into a rhythm. But it's tough because you paid Hartenstein this offseason to give that second unit a different look. And then you have Jericho Sims, who's shown that he could be a good center. And we saw that on the West Coast trip. Mitch was out, and we saw some really good minutes from Jericho Sims, whether it's rebounding, boxing out. He had that and one the other day, which was really nice. And Sims is just a good hustler, and we know he's a high-flying dunker. I would like to see Sims get more minutes, especially when it comes to defense. And this team needs all the defense it can, man. And I think the big thing that it comes down to is the contract. The question is, are they going to trade Hartenstein this before the deadline to give Sims more minutes, or are they going to continue to roll with Hartenstein and just want that different look because they need an offensive big? I feel like I would trade him at this point, man, unless he becomes some offensive juggernaut, and that's not who he is. And I would just roll with Sims, man. Just continue to develop the youth and see what we have in him, because his defense is just much needed for this team, man. We lose a beat once Mitch goes to the bench.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, man. And I think what you hit on is unfortunately the truth. It's the fact that we signed Isaiah in the summer, because in theory, Hartenstein is a really good complement to Mitch, because when he's hitting that floater, when he's passing out of the elbow, in theory, Isaiah Hartenstein is a really solid backup center. But the thing is this, I think early on in the year, we were seeing the best of Hartenstein, but when he doesn't have the floater going, when he doesn't have, when he's not passing, or maybe is not getting the looks, it's really hard to see what use we have for him in the rotation. And I hate to say it, but I know I just was talking about trading Derrick Rose, but I do think that's at least a conceivable option. It's something you have to discuss. It's something you have to consider. If getting Isaiah Hartenstein off this roster paves the way for Jericho Sims, who I know I didn't talk glowingly about in the beginning of this postgame show because we're comparing him to Mitch, but Jericho Sims is he's a momentum changer, and I think that's really the best part about his skill set right now. He does things on the court that create an energy shift, and I think that super important. So yeah, man, I mean, I get sticking with Hartenstein a little bit right now. I understand it, but we get to mid-December, January, and we're still there, the writing is on the wall. It would be ridiculous to continue to play him over Sims if he's still giving us what he gave us tonight, which is really not much.
Yeah, and I think for Hardenstein, like if he was on a team that had more offensive creativity, I could see his use on this team.
For sure.
But we don't. That's not this team. And Tibbs likes to run with rim protectors, and that's what Jericho Sims is. And I think it just also goes to the development of these guys, man. Like, who do we have? Let's see what they can offer to this team. But if we had a different system offensively to get him involved, and it's funny because this is the same coach that had Joakim Noah, and Joakim Noah is a passing big, you know, and we're just not seeing that. And maybe it's due to guys aren't cutting enough for him, but Joakim Noah is also a good defensive center, and Hartenstein is not that. So that's the other part of that equation. So I think you got to move off of him, man, by the trade deadline, and just allow Jericho Sims to get more minutes to see what he can offer. And I think just defensively, man, like offense, the center position doesn't even get that much offense to begin with. And like we also look for Hartenstein to be this stretch five, and he hasn't really done that. Like he hasn't really shot that many 3-point attempts, and when he does, it wasn't like Memphis, man. It hasn't been like the night of Memphis we was knocking those down, or even a little bit in preseason. And if we're not going to get that, then I don't see what we're not really utilizing him to his fullest on this team. And I think it's better just to trade him and get some sort of value in return rather than just have him here for the long haul. That's just my thoughts on that. But let's I want to ask you Jeff, you wrote an article for KnicksFanTV.com on some players I know people are already thinking about the draft. So let's hear who your three players are. You don't have to go in detail on them on the article you wrote, but let's hear some of the three players that you noted, and just so that the fans and anyone tuning in for the show can get some ideas on who to pay attention to for this upcoming college basketball year or just whatever.
Yeah, man, 100%. So listen, I love college basketball, especially the past 2 years covering the draft for Knicks Fan TV. It's been a lot of fun and really just like diving into the tape and getting to know some of these prospects. But there's three guys. Essentially, what I did, just to give the article a little bit of context, I looked at all of the mock drafts, the early college basketball international scout, G League, whatever it is, mock drafts. And I looked at where I kind of created an average position in which most people had the Knicks kind of sitting at. And then I would basically look at 5 players above or below that position and put a list together. And then I just took 3 guys who I know a little bit about and thought would be interesting and kind of looking how they would jive with some of the other players we have in the roster or fill a need or whatever. But the 3 guys I looked at were Anthony Black, who is a really talented guard from Duncanville, Texas. He plays with Arkansas. Their team is super loaded. They have a lot of great freshmen. Anthony Black has actually been tearing it up recently and is starting to get a lot of publicity. Terquavion Smith, who Knicks fans should already know because he tested the waters of the draft last year for North Carolina State. He was in the combine, made a name for himself a little bit, ultimately decided to stay, I believe, for his sophomore year with NC State. And then Jarris Walker, who is a really highly touted prospect from IMG Academy, playing with Houston, who a lot of people prior to this season starting felt like were at least top 3 in terms of the national title conversation. And Walker has been hitting his threes recently. So these 3 guys, honestly, Knicks fans, you definitely need to know their name. The guy that I secretly am really pulling for is probably Anthony Black the most, because he's a 6'7" guard. His playmaking, listen, it's not elite, but he's got that type of game where He's crafty when he gets into the lane. He can finish through contact. He's going to get stronger. He's going to get bigger. I like his ability to shoot from the outside. He feels like a player that's going to jump up draft boards, and I think he's going to be really exciting to watch on an Arkansas team, like I said before, that has a lot of talent. So if you manage to stick out on a team that has Nick Smith Jr., Ricky Council IV, like you're doing something right. So I'm interested to see how not only Anthony Black but those other two guys do as well.
It's awesome. And if you guys haven't checked out, make sure to go over to KnicksFanTV.com to go check out Jeff's latest article on the 3 college basketball players you should be looking out for to start this college basketball season. It's a really great write-up. And make sure to go over to check out all the other articles at KnicksFanTV.com. We got KFT Remy, who writes a recap after every game. So if you miss watching the game, Remy goes into detail and gives his player ratings and really gives an in-depth, thorough analysis on who played well, who didn't play well, what you'd like to see better from all these players, and moving forward. But let me read a few more super chats. Let's do our player ratings for tonight, and then we're gonna head on out of here. We got a super chat from Della Music 50 for the $10 super chat. Thank you for the $10 super chat. Thanks to everyone who gave us super chats tonight. Really appreciate it. Get to some others tonight as well. Question: Give the suspended Boston coach Quinn Snyder or Atkinson this team. Do you think we have a different record? Tibbs is out-prepared, motivated, and beat by these newer first-time coaches. So what Della Music 50, thanks for the super chat again, is asking, do we think that another coach like Quinn Snyder, Ime Udoka, or Kenny Atkinson, would they do a better job with this roster moving forward?
Oh boy.
I would say it's a loaded question.
Yeah.
Because I think it's twofold. Do I think that we could get better offense? Yes. Quinn Snyder is a really good coach. Ime Udoka is a really good coach. I like Kenny Atkinson is a really good coach as well. I think we would get definitely a different offense. I think the team would just be different overall. But at the same time, it comes down to, are the players executing and playing high IQ basketball? The coaching only does so much, right? Your talent is what's going to win you at the end of the day. So if your talent is mediocre, if it's a bunch of role players, that's what you're going to get. And we have a 500 record right now because we have a bunch of role players on this team. So do I think a coach could make a difference? Maybe for a couple more wins here and there. I don't think it's drastic enough. Maybe if you're thinking, like I said, 42 coming into the season, if you get one of those guys, maybe you get up to 44, 45. Maybe that's what they get you. Maybe they can play a more consistent brand of basketball that's more new age and more offensive driven. But I don't think that the coach would really throw them over the hill to be one of these 50-win teams or anything like that, because when you still look at the rest of the league, you look at the Boston Celtics, you look at the Philadelphia 76ers, who are starting to I think they're trying to make their way up. I haven't looked at the standings yet. Let me just take a quick look. You got guys like the Milwaukee Bucks, the Cleveland Cavaliers. Philly's back up in the top 6 of this. So you look at Philly, Cleveland, Milwaukee, Celtics. Like, do you think the Knicks are going to beat one of those teams in the playoffs fully healthy? I don't think so. I don't think this team is there yet. We're still, some all-stars away from making some real noise in this league, and the coaching is only going to make marginal difference. The coaching comes down to when you are getting to that end, like when you have Steve Kerr, when you have Nick Nurse, when you have all these guys, those in-game adjustments, those small nuanced things that you want from your head coach, that's when it's going to make a big difference. But just to go from 42 to 45 wins, that's probably what I would expect from that type of a coaching change. It comes back down to talent, and if you don't have the talent, it's going to be very difficult just to compete in this league.
Yeah, I sometimes I get frustrated with the Tibbs conversation. My thing is this, the guy who mentioned that, he brought up Kenny Atkinson. So I get it, right? Kenny Atkinson was in the running for the Knicks job. He had some marginal success with a Brooklyn Nets team with D'Angelo Russell as his point guard. And then he walked away from the Charlotte Hornets job, presumably for reasons like, I don't know, organizational dysfunction, whatever it was. Kenny Atkinson, still doesn't have a head coaching job, so I think, yeah, I'm sure he's a good coach. But it's not like the teams that all of them that have head coaching vacancies are just running, falling over themselves to get Kenny Atkinson in the door. The other thing is, like, I think Tibbs has actually answered some of his criticism this year. He said he doesn't adjust. He made Evan Fournier situational. He put Cam Reddish, who was traded for. It seems like front office and coaching staff weren't on the same page. Reddish wasn't playing a lot. Then he got hurt, comes into camp, plays well, is in the starting lineup for the majority of the time. Then he starts playing Randall and Obi minutes together, things that people have been wanting him to do. So I'm sure there's, of course, a coach out there. Am I going to say anything bad about Quinn Snyder? No, Quinn Snyder is a fantastic coach. The Knicks are not hiring Quinn Snyder with Johnny Bryant on this coaching staff. Like, I think that would also send probably a really bad sign to Bryant as well. If Tibbs gets fired, honestly, I think Bryant will probably take over, and either they'll evaluate him. I'm saying if this happens mid-season, I think Bryant takes over. They'll evaluate him and see if they have enough reason to believe that this younger coach with new ideas and, someone who has respect around the league is going to do well. But they're not going to bring Quinn Snyder in, who already worked with Johnny Bryant in Utah. I feel like that's like a super awkward fit. I don't know. I don't see that as like a possibility.
Yeah, I wouldn't see that either. Yeah, I wouldn't see that. I wouldn't see them doing that either. I think, and we've heard so many discussions that it seems like Johnny Bryant is the heir apparent and they'd want to have him as the next guy. I mean, he was interviewed for, I think he was on the list for Utah too as like one of the coaching candidates.
Yeah.
And I think his name is out there as someone that teams are looking at, but part of me feels like he's staying around because he knows this Knicks coaching job is going to be his. He's going to be the next guy. That's kind of how I see it, but things could always change. Just because you have something planned out from the get-go doesn't mean it's going to always work that way. But I think, once again, it just comes down to players. I think if you have Randall and RJ making better decision making around playmaking, I think we're talking about a different conversation right now, because Tibbs, as you point out, is doing the things that it's been harped on, even staggering rotations, mixing and matching lineups. Like, we had some interesting lineups. I mean, we had Grimes, Cam, I think it was Brunson. Who was it? We had Brunson, RJ, Cam, Obi, Randall. We had Cam, RJ, Grimes, Brunson, Randall out there towards the end of the fourth quarter. Like, we're getting some interesting rotations now, stuff that we've asked Tibbs to do as well. So to me, it always comes back down to coaching. Once again, I'm looking. Do I want to see better offense? Yes, but I don't. It also comes back down to the players as well. So that's the other part of this equation too. I'm going to go back to Freak and why they sent another $10 super chat saying it's not working. Based on our recent conversation, based on the recent super chat they sent earlier, where if they should have gone for 3 or taken the 2, it's not working. Every team knows Brunson is getting the ball. He will have 3 guys on him. Why not kick out to the open man? Brunson should have been a decoy. Thoughts on that? Once again, I get that, and I hear the decoy situation, but who do you want to trust with the ball in the last few seconds of the game? I mean, we've seen RJ have opportunities in the past. Randall is probably the next guy after Brunson who would get that type of opportunity. I mean, if you want to do a design play for Cam or Grimes, that's cool. We've seen that before. I just think you're going to go to Brunson because he's been that closer. And since he's been pretty consistent with it so far in most of these games, I could see tonight why you would go back to that well. But Definitely want to see some other things change. Maybe find Cam in the corner for a three, or maybe get him an opportunity to go drive and get get a layup, because you see that he's able to just, with his long strides, just able to get into the paint and maneuver his way around defenders just to finish around the rim. Maybe you want to give Grimes another chance so he can get back into his 3-point shooting. I get that as well. And I think those are things that we should see from Tibbs coming through. I just think for tonight, you go back to Brunson because he's been so consistent as a closer that I get it. And he had 17 points in the fourth quarter tonight. So why not go to the guy that was red hot, right? You keep going to the guy who has the hot hand. He had the hot hand. Another super chat from MK Tabs. Gave us a $3 super chat. IQ's playmaking is nowhere near D Rose's. And that's kind of, I'll say he can playmake. It just comes down to is he in that mode to be a playmaker and aggressive? I think, it's not that I think, I know Derrick Rose has figured that out. Derrick Rose understands when to attack and then when to find his teammates. Quickly has difficulty doing that. We saw that towards the end of last season. Once again, I could see the argument saying give him more minutes to figure it out, because we're going to move on from Derrick Rose at some point. And if it helps to open up more minutes for this team, I get that too. But as of right now, it's tough, man. It's really tough. I'm fine with it. I'm fine with that decision. But I get the idea of keeping Derrick Rose as having somebody that can get into the teeth of the defense consistently and be a playmaker as well.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it's just tough, man. He says, D Rose's playmaking is, the IQ's is nowhere near Derrick Rose. I mean, I don't know. Tough for me to buy. The one thing I will say that I definitely agree with you, Alex, is that you can see the way IQ plays the game, that he's definitely in an in-between mode. That he does struggle with figuring out when he wants to set up guys and look for his own shot. And early on in the year, I was very concerned with some of his shot selection. And I know he's a guy that we want shooting the ball no matter what, but there did seem to be times when he just, it's clear maybe you pull it back, or you try and set something up, or just make the easy pass to the guy next to you on the perimeter and see if something forms off that, and he wouldn't. But I'm probably not. I don't think I'm at a point where I'm going to say Derrick Rose's playmaking is so much better than Emmanuel Quickley's. Like, I don't necessarily agree with that. Can D Rose be a mentor to him and help him improve in certain areas? Yeah, for sure. But I don't see that. I think people that are maybe frustrated with me saying Derrick Rose should be traded, they're holding on to the Derrick Rose that we saw 2 seasons ago and the Derrick Rose that we saw last season before he got hurt. When Derrick Rose got hurt last year, you could say he was arguably our best player. That's sad, but it was probably true at the time. He was arguably our best player, the guy that was keeping the ship afloat. The problem is that there were so many issues with that ship, is that we shouldn't be focused on, damn, now D Rose is gone and we're struggling. No, there was a lot of reasons for us struggling, not just because Derrick Rose was keeping us afloat. But yeah, man, I don't know. I'm out on him, right now, but I hope he makes me look like an idiot and, goes 7 for 10 from the field and lights it up and we win. But I don't know.
But you know what? With that, and I hear that on Derrick Rose and the man quickly talk about. With that, let's move on to our player ratings and really wrap this show up. So let's kick it off, man. Let's kick it off with some player ratings. Who should we start off with? Start off with Mitchell Robinson, man. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the worst, 10 being the greatest. Where are you going with Mitch tonight?
I'm giving Mitch a strong 8, man. Like, I loved Mitchell Robinson's game tonight. You get 5 blocks, 16 and 7. Again, I'm just going to go back really quickly and say he stays on the floor and doesn't bite on head fakes, Mitchell Robinson is an incredibly impactful defensive force.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go with you, man. I'm gonna go with the 8 as well. You know, he had Steven Adams tonight. Steven Adams is no easy matchup. We saw what Steven Adams did to him the first game of this season, and I thought for Mitch coming back from injury, getting you 5 blocks, getting you 7 boards, 16 points, almost perfect from the field, man. 6 for 7, went 4 for 7 from his free throws. That we need to see him always improve on his free throws. But I think tonight, defensively, just stuff that you don't even see in the stat sheet, just his ability to guard the perimeter. Even he had good contests on John Morant. There was one where I think it was in the fourth quarter where Ja got to the elbow, knocked down a mid-range. But Mitch contested that very well, man. That's just good defense. That was good defense, just better offense at that point. And for Mitch, you know, it just comes down to consistency as well. I thought he had the best. I think he was the most poised tonight defensively. The rim protection, you see what happens when we don't have him. I give Mitch an 8 tonight for a solid effort. Where do you go with Julius Randle tonight, man? Where are you going with Julius?
Julius Randle. I can't be too hard on him. Didn't take a ton of shots. I didn't see a lot of bad shots. Again, some of those defensive lapses really frustrated me. I mean, he was close to a triple-double. I'm gonna go with 7. I was kind of leaning towards a 6, if I'm gonna be honest with you. I felt like that might be a little hard on Julius. I don't look at him, and I don't feel like he was the reason we lost. So I'm gonna go 7.
Yeah, I think 7 is the right number as well, man. I agree with you on that. I think 7 is the right number for Randall. He got you 14 points, got to the line, got you 10 rebounds, 9 assists. He was just, as you said, 1 point, 1 assist away from getting a triple-double tonight. But I thought there was more in this game where he could have done more defensively and offensively. There's a little bit more that he could have done tonight to really help this team. But I thought overall where his game wasn't like it could have been called for tonight, but he didn't. It just wasn't. It was really flowing through Brunson, Mitch, and Barrett. Like, I thought for him, he gets a 7 out of 10 tonight as well. Where do you go with RJ? What do you think? What do you think about RJ for tonight?
I'm not giving RJ a real favorable mark here. The thing is this. You have to be happy that he bounces back. He goes 50% from the field, 2 for 6 from 3, 22 points. I just don't think, like, I can't look at RJ Barrett anymore and be satisfied with a 20-point game and just be like, RJ got his 20. You know, like, all right, that's good. That's great. I'm seeing pockets where he's impacting the game in a positive way. I'm frustrated that 2 years ago we were talking about RJ Barrett being a solid two-way player. And I feel like defensively, there's still more that I need from him. You know, like there's all these interviews in the beginning of the season. Alex, you probably remember them. You saw them. Oh, RJ takes on the toughest task of defending the opposing team's best player. How do you feel about that, RJ? Like, yeah, I need to see whoever that is, you know, being stopped a little bit or really struggling when RJ is on them. And I'm not seeing that. So maybe this is a little harsh, but I'm giving RJ a 6. You know, I'm no longer happy about 22-point games or whatever. Don't get me wrong. Like, I like the percentage, but 18 shots, I need to see a stamp from him on the game that is not about getting 20 points a game. I need to see him making winning plays, maybe diving on the floor, or he gets a deflection, or he makes a really great defensive read, and that leads to, you know, a turnover on the break, and he's, you know, stopping the other team's best player. Like, that's what I need from RJ Barrett. I don't need 20-point games from him anymore.
I'm shocked with a 6. I'm gonna go 7, man. I'm gonna go 7 for RJ, and I think all those things ring true, right? It's what are the winning plays? Are you going to dive for the loose ball? Like we see Hartenstein do that as well. Are you going to make those playmaking, like those passes that are helping the team go to that next level? Are you going to take off the blinders? Now, he was efficient tonight from the field, 9 for 17, 2 for 6 from 3, 22 points, 4 assists, 7 rebounds. I think he can always get more assists, especially when he drives. And it's just, he needs to do that, as you pointed out. I'm going to go with the 7, though, because I thought it was still a solid game from him. He did help us stay in this matchup against the Memphis Grizzlies. He did have some solid clutch threes, I should say. Clutch threes in the fourth quarter, especially with pretty sure it was the fourth quarter. Yeah, he had clutch threes in the fourth quarter. And I think those type of things that I'm going to weigh in tonight. He gets a 7. It could have been better, of course. I expect it to be better. Consistency is always going to be the thing with RJ. These slow starts need to stop. But I'm going to give him a 7 for tonight. Where do you go with Cam Reddish for tonight? Were you giving Cam Reddish a grade?
Listen, I'm giving Cam. Listen, Cam did. I'm not gonna go crazy high on him, but Cam did everything that was asked of him in the minutes that he was given, in the role that he was given. He didn't have a big piece of the offense. They don't give him the ball and say, hey, get a pick and roll and do whatever it is. No, he gets secondary, attacking closeouts, or he's cutting to the basket, okay, or the open 3. That's what Cam Reddish gets. And I thought he did well in that, and I thought he made some really good defensive plays. I'm giving him an 8. Cam Reddish is a really important player for us right now, and I thought he was doing well, and I want to see more of it.
Glad you said 8, because that's how I was feeling for Cam too. Because with the limited offense that he gets, 4 for 6, he just makes plays, man. And he had a clutch 3 as well in the fourth quarter. His ability to get to the rim is just on a whole other level, man. I'd like to see him get more offense. I'm gonna go with an 8 for Cam as well. And defensively, he's been one of our best defenders too.
Yeah.
He is so important, man. And he got 2 assists too tonight, man. You see that he can even do that. He got one to Mitch. He had one to he found Mitch tonight. I forget where the other assist came from, but he had one to Mitch. You see that he can make these type of plays. I think he just needs, as you said, the opportunity to do so, and that's just getting the ball more and just distributing this offense a little bit better, because there's other guys who can score, and Cam is definitely one of those guys who can impact the game in a different way, especially on the defensive end. And it'll just help him get into offensive rhythm better. And like you also noted, and you mentioned how he has that look in his eyes when he had that look in his eye when he drained that 3 today too. Like if you keep him involved, he will just turn on that switch to just be in attack mode. And you need that. That's these are the little nuances of the game as a coach you have to figure out. This is where I'll get on Tibbs, because he'll pull the ball away from guys who are hot like that. When you see someone is feeling it and is just ready to be a dog, you let them loose and just let them attack. And that's something that he has to figure out and do. And now last but certainly not least, where do you go with one Jalen Brunson?
Jalen Brunson, godson of Leon Rose. He gets a 9, man. The only reason I can't give him a 10 is, if you're going to take on that big responsibility of taking the last shot, like I said before, you can't skip steps, right? If you're going to be the guy, you probably got to get some heartbreak along the way before you start making those. And he's missed a couple of them. It's no shade. It's not a bad thing. Jalen Brunson is still really great. But a 9, man. I love the game that he played. I love the toughness that he has. He is our best player, and he generally plays like it every night. So Jalen Brunson gets a 9 for me.
Absolutely, I agree with that. CP gave him an 8, and we usually talked about 7 is probably the highest you can go on a loss. 7, because that's what it is. But this is a quality opponent. He got 17 points in the fourth quarter. Dude was in attack mode, was in his bag, getting to the line, finding his teammates, doing everything you can ask from him. We know he's not going to be that defensive stopper, but the fact that he's able to do all of that and have this team in just even in it towards the end where we could potentially win, and he did. He knocked down the free throws to give us that lead.
Right.
John Morant just goes to the other side, and we didn't have great defense to stop Ja, and Ja just gets lucky that he grabs a loose ball to put it back up for an easy layup. I'm gonna give Jalen Brunson a 9 as well. because he's just phenomenal, man. Just phenomenal overall, and like really, it comes down to what would we do without him. But we're wrapping up the show now. But we got one more super chat from Chuck D, a $10 super chat. Shout out to Chuck D once again. He says, my wish is that the Knicks don't get envious of Brunson and they entrust on his leadership and he trusts delivering the rock to someone else shooting potential game winner, sometimes win, lose, or draw. I agree with that.
Yeah.
I agree with that 100%. Like Brunson, as much as we need him as the closer in most minutes, it comes down to trusting your teammates as well and giving them those same opportunities, because you never know. You never know who's going to have that shot. Whether it's like RJ last year with the shot against Boston. We've had Randall even do it from time to time, but you just never know, and that's where you got to trust your teammates and share the rock. But hey, thank you to Knicks Nation for tuning in for this KFTV post-game live. Appreciate it. Make sure to hit that thumbs up button for your boys. We had a lot of you rocking with us tonight. Really appreciated it. Make sure to go check out KnicksFanTV.com. Make sure to go check out Jeff's latest article about the 3 players you should focus in on for the start of this college basketball season. Also, for these games, for these recaps, you can go over, like I said, over to KnicksFanTV.com and go check out Remy's recaps. He does a great recap of every game if you miss it, and deep dives into how players perform, good, bad, where they can improve, all of that good stuff. And make sure to just check out KnicksFanTV.com in general. We got a lot of great writers over there. We got Chip, we got Mike, we got Luke, we got Jalen. We got a lot of contributors over there. Make sure to go check them out. Also, remember the show is sponsored by Manscaped. Use the KFTV promo code KFTV, get 20% off, free shipping and handling. And we out, Knicks Nation. Salute to the mods, salute to the chat, salute to all of you. Appreciate you for tuning in. We'll catch you later. We out.